We're here at Hammerspace recording today, and I've got Jonathan from Perth-based company Tensive Effects. Jonathan has the Boundless, and we're going to go through a bunch of sounds on this. Thanks for joining me on the show, Jonathan. Thanks for coming in and making this happen. Do you want to tell me a little bit about yourself and the pedal? What led you to design this, and how is it different from everything else that's out there?
Yeah, great to be here, thanks. So I started playing guitar in my teens, improved for a few years, and then progress sort of slowed down a little bit. That coincided with me just, trying to find sounds, and first amp I think I had, or first decent amp I had, was a JCM 800. Rather than buy a tube screamer because I wanted a little bit more out of it, I decided, well, I can build one for a little bit cheaper. Then that started a good 25 year journey in creating guitar pedals. About 10 years or so ago, I just couldn't find what I wanted in a rig, and some pedals suited my sound, but they'd only have the one sort of sound.
Yep.
I wanted something that was a little bit more flexible but still retain that sort of analog feel that you get with a tube amp. So I developed the Boundless.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to hear it with my DGT. We're here at Hammerspace, so we've got a real cab mic'd up. We're going to make a bunch of noise, but I will just say, if you want to learn more about this pedal and you like the sounds that you're about to hear on here, I'll link the Tensive Effects website in the video description, and these are ready to order now. But for now, I'm just going to play guitar, and this is awesome having an extra pair of hands on here so that we can make some sounds. Let's dive in, mate. We're going to start out with a PRS DGT. I have the coil split on this guitar. It's going into the Boundless pedal. That's going to a Boogie 290 power amp and a 2x12 with a Celestion V30 and a V-type. There's a Shure SM57 and a Royer 121 blended. I'm going to do a bit of playing, and then John is just going to tweak. We'll start with a really neutral, clean sound, and then play with the EQ, maybe give me a bit of grit and a bit of grease on there. So let's go. So as you can see, fairly straightforward to operate on the pedal. John, talk me through the EQ in particular, because that's something which is very unique in there. I like that as we went through it, never got really tinny and ratty sounding or overly boomy. How did you go about voicing and designing that?
Yeah, so basically the tone stack sort of EQs that you find on amps, I find them a little bit broad in terms of their adjustments, so you can't get too precise with them. I designed this more like a graphic EQ, but with a new topology that I made so that it doesn't get too sort of peaky as you go or too hollow as you go down, and worked on those, centering those frequencies right.
Yeah, so it's sort of an interesting thing where it still feels and sounds like an amp, but it's not your typical, you got to turn the bass all the way up or all the way down or something like, I don't know, a Marshall or a Boogie, right? It's not just copying another amp circuit.
Yeah, no, that's it, all original, and tried to make it as little interaction as possible between the controls. So what you do is what you actually expect to come out of it.
Yeah, really interesting. Now, there's a couple of switches on there and some extra source on top of all of that, right? Do you want to show me some of the more compressed modes? And I'll do the same thing. I'll just kind of play. I'll try to play similar stuff on there.
So that adjusts the dynamics of the gain. So as it starts to clip, it'll clip in one of two different ways: more of an open mode, which we were sort of playing around with before, and the more compressed mode where you start to dig in and it, just compress that sound a little bit.
Yeah, I really like the compressed mode with the single coils thing on there, and being able to switch between like the humbuckers on this guitar and the split mode on there. It's not massively dropping in level, which is a nice thing. Yep. Again, a lot of pedal platformy things. You set them up for humbuckers and they're great, and then you've immediately got to tweak them on there. Whereas I think most people would know, like on an amp, and it doesn't necessarily do that, right? So you're getting that. Let's have a play around with the faux power amp style controls on there. So there's a resonance and a presence control, right? And anything else you want to switch in while we're still on this. I mean, it's a clean channel, right? But it's cleaner than the gain channel, which we'll hear in a second. So I'll keep noodling around and then we'll talk about it. sticks out to me there, and maybe you can explain it to me. You know, like a typical 3-knob distortion pedal that has a tone control, there's always a range that you hit on the tone control where it just sounds like razor blades in your ears, but you were cranking the presence on there and a bunch of the other controls there. Is that what you're talking about with the topology where it's never getting too peaky?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So it stays reasonably wide, but it still hits that high frequency, that really high frequency that you need for
Yeah.
that.
And what are the other switches doing on there if you want to go through? I can see at least 4 in a row and then another one above there.
Yep.
Another 2?
So the first section, the input gain, has 3 selectable frequencies. So you can center where to give it that kick in the pants,
Yep.
sort of as you're playing. Full and tight, we haven't really gone on to the tight mode, but that's more for the higher gains where if it starts to get a bit flubby, you can really tighten up
Yep.
the sound and it'll sort of smooth out the top end a bit as well. The open and compress mode we've explained. And the other 2 switches switch between the 4 different sort of channels on each pedal as well. Obviously, we're just on the clean channel
Yep.
at the moment, so we'll get to the others.
Yeah, awesome. One thing I want to hear with this is the tight control will work on this cleaner channel, right?
Yep, that's
So
right.
can we
yeah.
crank the gain
Yeah,
up
absolutely.
quite a bit and just play around with that? And I'll just do some humbuckery things on here.
Range of gain obviously goes right down from crystal clean up to that sort of edge of breakup sort of sound.
Can you crank the gain up just before we go over to the dedicated like gain channel? I'll just play around with the volume control a little bit more because that's always a make or break thing on a, it doesn't have tubes, can it do the thing? So let's do that. I'll crank it up and crank the gain up for me. Give me all the switches and all the options, and I'm just going to play through, and then you can explain what's going on and the options that it gives you on there, all right? So the whole time I thought we were playing on the lead channel. That's the high gain mode of the clean channel. You're just kind of surfing the various options on there with the EQ and stuff. Let's hear the difference between that and the actual, I guess, the low gain mode of the lead channel. Is that how you've set it up?
Yeah, that's right.
So
yeah.
is it 4 sounds?
So 4 sounds, yeah. So you've got your clean channel in a low and high gain mode, but you can still get fairly high gain out of that. And then a bit of a different character on the lead channel. It's got the low gain mode for sort of hard rock sounds up to high gain, which just gets too much gain if you want it.
Too much gain? I don't think so. All right, let's go to the lead channel now. We'll start out on the low gain mode, and yeah, don't be afraid to flick over to the high gain mode so we can hear the difference on there.
Yeah, sure.
We're gonna make some big noises. All right, let's hear the same thing with the input boost on there and then with the tight control, because that was sounding pretty slamming, and then maybe pull out some mid-range as we go. So same thing. I really like that with the input boost on. That's like the last little bit of sauce on there.
Yeah, it just gives it that bit of a kick.
5150-ish, dare I say, on there. That's kind of the voicing. It's like instant, like late 90s, early 2000s. Now, if you've got multiples of these, you've got a killer app happening as well. You can have all those sounds on a single pedal, but we've got 3 up here at the moment, dialed in for 3 different sounds. We don't have a loop switcher or anything like that. Show me how you've approached, I guess, people who might want to use these interchangeably, not necessarily stack them, but if you had 2 or you had 3.
Yeah, given that there's dedicated controls for each of them, because I didn't want to share EQs and put 2 channels on, one pedal or that sort of thing, I came up with a way to link the pedals just using standard patch cables. They're just TRS patch cables.
Sweet.
So all you do is link between the units from the input to the output of another, and if they're the same unit, you switch one off and it will switch the others on through the standard cables.
All right, so let's just go through, and you can obviously individually switch them off with a double press, right?
Yeah, that's right. So
cool.
That's bypassing everything. One.
Awesome. All right, we'll do a live demo of this, and it's seamless, hey?
Yep, that's right.
How good. I love that as well. No pops or switches. So you've kind of designed this, I guess, as like a modular multi-channel pedal preamp.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot more easy to just say that it's the Boundless from Tensive Effects. Where can people find you on the internet, mate, and where can they order one of these?
Yep. So it's Tensive Effects on Facebook and Instagram, and the website, and it's available now from the website direct.
Fantastic. And you're based here in Perth, Western Australia as well. So extra kudos for making something that not only sounds cool, it feels great, it looks great. And I mean, at the moment, and hopefully you'll be able to expand from here, but it's a one-man operation. You're running all of this. If people want to contact you, you're going to be able to actually get in touch with the person who's creating these.
Yeah, that's right. So if people need advice on the pedals or for ordering or just want to ask a few questions about them, I take a lot of pride in the project. So yeah, available for anyone to talk to.
As you should. Alrighty. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Check out Tensive Effects, and we will see you on the next one.